Nice fade in on that song.
Right? It's a beautiful piece of music. It's perfect.
Oh, well, I thought this was a Tina Turner song. I was like, wow, the early days.
Yeah, no, honey.
Yeah.
This is Tony Bennett. Who got you?
Samiko Salson. She says if the government stopped charging taxes, they would charge us through constant advertisements.
PepsiCo presents the DMV.
And selling our information to advertisers.
Right.
The DMV just sold your information to Ukanuba dog food. Do they still make Ukanuba dog food? I think it got bought by Iams.
Not as a non-dog owner currently. I'm unaware of the names of pretty much any dog food. The only one and I can't even think I remember that wonderful. Did you see that thing that I posted from the Rose Parade? Dick Van Patten's surprising that family with the veteran.
No.
Oh my God! It's one of the most beautiful videos.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. And it was he owns a dog food company. I think it's called
Okay.
All Natural Pet Foods or something like that. I can't remember.
Is he on the packaging for the dog food?
Dick Patten, probably.
Dick Van Patten?
Dick Van Patten,
Okay.
yeah. And they do a big float in the Rose Parade every year. And this year they did this giant float that was a salute to veterans or whatever. And there was the woman and her child were there, and they told them they'd won some competition to take photographs or something like that. And they'd flown the husband home from Iraq or Afghanistan, and he was on the float, and he just stepped down and embraced them. Oh my God, I'm crying telling that.
Okay, we'll get it together. We got 30 seconds.
Cried every time I saw it. Goodbye. Is there an ID?
Welcome back to the dinner party show. I guess not. Oh. This is exciting.
Brandon tricks us again. Okay,
I think we're live now, right?
Possibly.
We had a little confusion in the booth.
Are we live, Brandon? Could we get like a hand
live?
signal?
That's good.
Some semaphore?
I think Tony Bennett induced a swoon in everyone
I think
here.
absolutely.
It's
What
a very ironic lead-in, given
Wow.
what we're about to talk about. Okay, let's start the hors d'oeuvres this evening by quoting Leonardo da Vinci. Thank you to Caleb Hillman for putting this post on our Facebook page. Beyond a doubt, truth bears the same relation to falsehood as light to darkness. That is Leonardo da Vinci, folks.
whose
Eric?
birthday is tomorrow. He
Yes.
would be like, way over 30 tomorrow. Okay, so here's what happened.
I'm listening.
I've been watching Spartacus. Spoiler alert, the ending is really sad. It's history, and so they don't get to pick what ending the story has because that's how history works. It's already decided. Anyway, the network that aired Spartacus, which has been a remarkably progressive show in its depiction of gay people, was airing a new show called The Da Vinci's Demons. And so I TiVoed. I set up to watch that. I thought that would be great fun. I was really looking forward to see it. And I sat and watched the show, and I don't know who that show was about, but it wasn't about Leonardo da Vinci, because this was about some womanizing straight guy with pretty homophobic attitudes and kind of snarky remarks about gay people. It bore no resemblance to what history tells us Leonardo da Vinci was actually like, and I went insane.
And I went with you.
Just
And
this
I went
kind
with
of
you.
stuff. Several years ago, there was a movie called Troy, which was based on a 2,000-year-old epic. It is fiction, but it still actually exists. It is a written-down story that is a tradition, and I was delighted to see it. Brad Pitt was going to play...
Achilles.
I always want to say Aeschylus. Achilles,
yes.
and Garrett Hedlund was going to play his lover, Patroclus. But when I went to see it, David Benioff, who I have sort of forgiven because he's done such a wonderful job with Game of Thrones, had written a script in which Achilles and Patroclus were cousins.
Mm-hmm.
Which is not the same story at all.
No, it's not.
You know, depriving gay people, particularly young gay people,
Mm-hmm.
or anyone, of the notion that gay people can actually be the leading man or the hero of a story is a really insidious form
Mm-hmm.
of bigotry. You know, I don't know. David Goyer's work, the man who developed Da Vinci's Demon, is pretty remarkable, and I don't think he maliciously set out to do this, but I don't think he even it
The
amazes
word is
me.
insidious. The word is insidious because it means something is reflexive. This is reflexive bigotry. It's like, oh well, if it's going to be a major show, we can't accurately portray this guy's actual sexual identity.
Or they never even considered it as a possibility.
Right,
Like
right.
it never even occurred to them, which I just think is bad writing. If you're writing about a historical figure and you didn't even bother to look him up, then I just think you kind of suck as a writer.
And I think they did look him up, and I think what's even more insulting about it was the charm offensive this show tried to do, where they claimed that they were going to do justice to the scholarly research around Da Vinci's sexuality, and they have done nothing of the kind. And what people do who don't want to talk about this issue is they say, well, there's speculation, and nobody knows for sure. There's not been that level of
That's just
speculation
not
around
true.
Leonardo da Vinci. There was speculation around whether or not he was a practicing homosexual or celibate. But the famous art historian Kenneth Clark, arguably one of the most famous art historians in the world, he
Ever.
started the BBC series Civilization.
Right.
He passed away in 1983. He wrote in a book entirely about Leonardo da Vinci, "We cannot look at Leonardo's work and maintain that he had the normal man's feelings for women. Those who wish in the interests of morality to reduce Leonardo, that inexhaustible source of creative power, to a neutral or sexless agency have a strange idea of doing service to his reputation." He had a long-term partner who worked as his assistant, but was described as being one of the worst assistants you could possibly be.
Because he wasn't his assistant.
He was a thief. He stole all sorts of money. He spent all kinds of money of Leonardo da Vinci's, and Leonardo da Vinci kept him employed for 30 years.
Yeah. Because he wasn't his assistant.
Right. Michael White, a former science editor of British GQ, who also wrote a book about Leonardo called Leonardo the First Scientist, said there's little doubt that Leonardo remained a practicing homosexual. He also described other alleged homosexual affairs Leonardo had with a Florentine man named Fioravanti di Domenico and a young falconer, Bernardo di Simone. So this is a mountain of evidence that they ignored or pretended wasn't there.
They've acted like there's going to be some episode in which they deal with his bisexuality, but what I'm saying is, in that episode, that controversial episode, that should have been the one where maybe he had a dalliance with a woman.
Right.
Because that would have been the outlier for him. He's already bedded the mistress of somebody in the first episode of the show. There was the only real encounters with any gay people in this particular episode were, I guess, the Pope is supposed to be this evil, child-murdering gay guy or something.
That's charming.
It's really charming.
Yeah.
But possible. You know, there are gay villains out there too, and I don't think we need to pretend that didn't happen. If it did, and then Leonardo actually makes, the character who plays Leonardo actually makes this really sort of homophobic, dismissive remark to a model who is clearly being presented as a gay character.
And this scene was presented in these interviews that people associated with the show did with After Elton and other venues as proof that they were doing justice to his sexuality.
It was literally, he dismissed him. He says, "Oh, you should go talk to, not Bartolomeo.
Botticelli.
Botticelli. You should
Yes.
go talk to Botticelli," he says, in a sort of dismissive, homophobic, like gay people are, go talk to the fag. Like,
Yeah.
that's the sort of tone that he takes, and that's the only real address to any sort of, like, I think it's fine for them to make this show, but why choose Leonardo da Vinci if you don't want to debate? None of the other actions are obviously, it's very fictionalized, obviously it's not Leonardo da Vinci's life, so why choose Leonardo da Vinci? I have a real argument with doing this sort of stuff on a much larger scale, I hate Pride and Prejudice and zombies. If you want to write a zombie book, go ahead. Leave Jane Austen the hell alone. I have a problem with Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter. Abraham Lincoln is an actual historical figure. There are people, I don't want people to get the impression that he's an actual, like, what if I wanted to write a book called Abraham Lincoln, KKK founder and racist? Like, would that really be okay? He's an actual figure with an actual position in
Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter that posits that his son was murdered by a vampire. This is an actual child that he gave birth to. Yeah. That was just over the line for me.
And it also posits that the Civil War was fought because vampires wanted a ready supply of, meat, of people to eat, and slavery provided that to them. Yeah. Kind of minimizing the whole slavery thing. I think it's fine to come up with your own imaginative stuff, but I think it is really questionable to infringe on existing historical figures, and I think gay people have just simply been sanitized out of history.
I like the word scrubbed.
Yeah, scrubbed from history. And I think that's destructive. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when God first moved into the neighborhood, but but young people listening to this show or seeing Leonardo da Vinci don't have any way of knowing that Leonardo da Vinci was a gay man. So if I'm a young gay person, where are the heroes that I'm looking for? Barbara Walters says that the number one question that she is asked by people is so-and-so gay? And I don't think it's just in an effort to include everybody. It's because we're desperately looking for our own gay heroes because they are being hidden from us actively in what is an insidious thing. There was a study called the Clark doll experiment done years ago where black children were shown, this was during the era of segregation, and they were shown little blonde-headed, blue-eyed dolls and little, brown dolls with dark hair and dark eyes that more closely resembled them, and they were asked to identify the pretty one or the special one or the good one, and they picked the blonde-haired, blue-eyed doll because that's what they were being taught. And this kind of insidious crap is what we're teaching gay children. You're not good enough to be a hero. You're not good enough to be the leading man in the series. So we just excise you from that possibility. They were depicted very favorably. Gay people were depicted very favorably, and I thought very frankly in the Spartacus, which also aired on the same network, but they were not Spartacus. They were not the hero of the episode. It's fine to be the best friends, but it's not okay to be the leading man, and that's really got to stop. We've posted a link on the Facebook page, I did, to GLAAD, an organization that's purpose is about defamation of gay people. You can click on there and actually ask them to say something to stars.
We've posted Eric's open letter to stars about this, in which you say you believe this is an act of defamation.
Absolutely.
They have completely altered the historical record about an existing historical figure in order of making a marketable show, and they're in the process scrubbing history of gay presence and of gay contributions. And I think that is, and we had this bewildering exchange on Facebook this weekend with someone saying, well, it's fiction. Why are you talking about this? There is
Leonardo da Vinci is not fictional.
And there is a responsibility that an artist takes on when they're going to write about an existing historical period. Yes, there are some minor changes that you may have to make structurally, and you may have to say somebody had a certain type of car that they didn't have because you need them to get somewhere in a certain scene in a certain amount of time. Those sorts of things happen. But if you are making a commitment to write about a certain era or a certain individual, you have a responsibility to honor the truth, the collective truth that you've gleaned through your research of who they were. And nobody can look at the historical scholarly profile of Leonardo da Vinci and say that he's who he's being depicted as in this series.
Absolutely
no
not.
one.
You can say he's a redhead if you want to. You can say that he's 12 feet tall if you want to. But to intrinsically change his character and the nature of who he is, I think is really, and for the reasons that they did. It is pretty clear to me that the reason that this guy, because he's the hero of the show,
right.
And Goyer says he wanted to write a Batman-like, very little is as homoerotic as Batman and Robin, but that's another discussion.
Yeah.
But he wanted a new superhero, and I guess he just felt he couldn't create one that was a gay man.
Right.
I assume that's my takeaway.
I think what really galvanizes a lot of writers around Leonardo da Vinci are his journals. What they want to do is they want to play with the content of those journals. And let me remind everyone that according to A Mind of Its Own, A Cultural History of the Penis by David M. Friedman, Leonardo's da Vinci's notebooks contain 5,000 pages of elaborate, detailed sketches of the male penis. And they demonstrate
5,000 pages.
5,000 pages.
Wow, that's
One page of Leonardo's notebook shows an erect penis sketch near the bottom of the sheet, and to its left is a muscular male torso in profile, its back turned to the penis.
Suspicious.
Whether it's intentional or not, the penis is poised to enter the male's anus. So, that's just one of many examples. We could do an entire show about
Well,
this.
there's the famous drawing of the lover, of Salai.
Yes, absolutely.
With the erection that used to be in the British Royal Collection. I'm not sure who holds it these days, but it's actually it's erotic and fully erect and his boyfriend.
Absolutely. But to answer the question, and I think we should close and move on with the rest of our show.
No, I don't want to talk about anything else.
The reason we are talking about this at the level that we are talking about is, imagine if they had, as you said, done the Martin Luther King Jr. story and made him white, or made his contributions that of a white friend.
Or this weekend, the show the movie 42 that's doing very well at the box office about Jackie Robinson, a very historical and important figure in the civil rights movement, the first black baseball player for the Brooklyn Dodgers. And what if we made him, a Latin guy or a white guy who was just very supportive of, what if that wasn't the story? People wouldn't do that. And that's the level of offense that we're talking about here.
The example that I like is, what if we went and revisited the great contributions of women throughout history and said that their husbands were really responsible for them?
Or just made their characters into men.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Which we probably do.
Well, I'm sure we will be returning to this issue at some point.
Because I'll just start talking about it again.
Are you going to watch more of the show? Are you going to monitor this show, or are you going to be able to do that?
I have no idea. I was so blown away by my experience on Friday. I don't know. I have no idea what to say.
Yeah. Well, John Matson on our Facebook page is saying, note to self, never piss off Eric Shaw Quinn. And on that note, a word from one of our new sponsors.
Okay, here come the guests.